3/4 of a dome? Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi, and today I'm reviewing a pair of HO scale Southern Pacific Dome lounge cars from Rapido Trains. My cars are decorated for Southern Pacific, one in daylight red and orange and the other in red and silver. Rapido offers these cars in several different paint schemes, including the SP Yellow Overland scheme, Amtrak, and the Canadian Pacific Selkirk. I pre-ordered and got my cars for $159.95 each direct from Rapido in September 2025, slightly over the original quoted pre-order price of $151.95 in October 2023. I also paid $30.71 as a tariff surcharge for both cars, which is about $15.35 a piece, bringing the total price per car to $175.30. I should note that I saw these cars for about $135 at an online retailer after I began taping this review. Since there are two models in this review, we'll start the cars at 200 possible points. Each model comes in a cardboard box with a clear plastic sleeve around the outside. Inside, a plastic cradle protects the model. The bottom half of the cradle has stickers, some literature, extra couplers, and a magnetic wand. The literature includes an exploded view drawing and parts list, and a page with prototype information as well as warranty information. The car is wrapped in thin plastic film to protect the finish. This is a good box that should protect the model for storage and transport. In 1954 and 1955, Southern Pacific rebuilt 7 older passenger cars into dome lounge cars. These cars were constructed in SP's Sacramento shops using dome kits supplied by the Bud Company. I've also sometimes heard these referred to as 3/4 domes since the dome is not quite full length. Initially, these cars were built with fluted sides and painted orange and red for use on the San Joaquin and Shasta daylights and in UP yellow for use on the Overland. Later, the cars also appeared on other SP trains. The cars were eventually rebuilt with flat sides and painted in SP's Scarlet and Silver General Service or Sunset scheme. Some ended up being used by Amtrak. One car, 3605, is now part of the Canadian Pacific Heritage Fleet and has been named Selkirk. I found several photos of the silver car, 3602, on page 51 of James Kincaid's Southern Pacific Color Guide to Freight and Passenger Equipment, Volume 3. The model appears to be a near-perfect match. The only differences I can see is that the car in the photos has ACI labels, and in the two lower photos the underbody equipment appears to be painted silver. In the top photo the underbody looks to be gray as on the model. The photos were taken several months apart, so it's possible the car's underbody was repainted in the interim. ACI labels were likely added later, so I'm assuming that the car represents the appearance after it was released from the shop. There's also a photo of 3602 on the Rapido website in silver paint with fluted sides. I wasn't able to find any photos of the daylight painted car 3606 while it was in service. I did find some photos of the real car being used as a stationary structure in Rockland, California. I checked Google Maps and apparently it's still there as I'm making this program. The car looks to be in poor condition cosmetically with flat sides and faded silver and red paint. The underbody details appear to be slightly altered, but since the model represents the car's early appearance, that's hardly conclusive. I'm going to give the car the benefit of the doubt. The paint on the cars is opaque and thin enough not to obscure fine details. The markings are crisp and free of voids, and the separation lines between the colors are sharp. Red and orange are difficult colors to get to cover well, and Rapido did a good job with the paint. All the tiny writing is legible. It may take magnification to see it. I like the small stencils on the truck side frames and some of the underbody details. I like the two-toned effect on the silver car too, which replicates the look of the prototype. The models have freestanding grab irons throughout. Rapido did an outstanding job with the window glazing. Not only is it flush-fitting, but it has the prototypical greenish tint and is exceptionally clear. On the ends, the cars have sprung plastic diaphragms, uncoupling levers, and hoses. Up top, the short section of roof that's not part of the dome has a lot of neat detail with more freestanding grabs. The dome gives a great view of the detailed interior. A car like this with so much glass really needs an interior. Rapido did a great job here. Not only are the interior pieces done in different colors, but there is prototypical variation between the two cars. It's really hard to show just how nice the interiors of these cars are on camera. The seat configuration in the raised area is different on both models. The silver car has a row of seats in the dome area, while the daylight painted car has couches and tables. There's even a bar in the back of the car that's stocked with details. All that's missing are some patrons and a bartender. Underneath, the models have more outstanding detail. Since these cars were rebuilt from older cars, the underbody details vary from car to car, and the two models reflect this. The cars have metal wheels with the common RP25 tread profile. All the wheels pick up current for the interior lighting. The The car has metal knuckle couplers on both ends. Looking for a match on the horizontal center line, the coupler on the dome end of the daylight painted car is at the correct height. The coupler on the other end is high, so I'm taking 5 points. The coupler on the dome end of the silver car is at the correct height. The other end is also good. All the wheels are engaged according to the NMRA standards gauge. Neither of the cars has any significant body wobble. The daylight painted car weighs 6.6 ounces. The silver car weighs 6.7. Both are very close to the 6.75 ounce NMRA recommended weight for a car of this length. The models are extremely free rolling and need just a little nudge to glide across the workbench. When coupled together, the diaphragms don't touch. I'm testing the models on Kato 550mm curves, which are equivalent to a 21 5/8 inch radius. They work at low speeds, though not necessarily reliably. Oddly enough, I got better results with the locomotive. Pushing them by hand made them derail almost every time. The ends of the cars are extremely close. Rapido recommends a 22-inch minimum radius, and I'd recommend even larger curves for cars like this. If you do want to run the cars on tight curves, you might want to consider swapping the couplers for the long shank couplers included in the box. On a powered track, the interior lights can be turned on and off by waving the magnetic wand over the non-dome area of the roof. The lights default to being on. They also have a capacitor circuit that will keep them lit for a couple seconds if they lose power, which should be enough to eliminate most flickering. Since it's my preference, I'm going to change the couplers to KD 158s. I'll start by removing the draft gearbox lid. Actually, if you just lift up on the coupler, it'll come out and the lid will come off with it. Kind of. To grab it with some pliers. There's a lot of little details and hoses and things kind of in the way, so you have to be careful. I'll remove the spring since I won't need it with the whisker couplers. If you were going to use the couplers with springs, though, like a KD number 5, this looks like the spring should work. I don't know if you have to have the couplers off to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it with them off. But if you spread the sides of the car, the floor will come out. It's a little tricky. All right, that took a little coaxing, but I did manage to get it apart, and you can open the car up, so if you wanted to add figures, you could do that. So this gives a better view of the detailed interior. As you can see, it's molded in several colors, or maybe painted. There's some neat touches like wallpaper. This is pretty cool. I didn't notice that at first when I was just looking at the car from the outside. This also gives a better view of the bar area that I was mentioning earlier. You can see it even has a little sink. It's got some stuff on the bar. Pretty cool. On the dome end, there's a little stairway going up from the vestibule door, which is pretty neat. There are even railings on the other stairway on the other end of the car going up from this lower lounge area to the dome. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's really hard to see this kind of stuff from the outside, but it's really neat that it's there. There are spring connectors on the car that make contact for the electricity for the lights. So when you put it back together, you got to make sure that these go in the right spot. The contact points are here inside the part of the roof that's flatter, and then you can see the capacitor also to help keep the lights on, and then the individual lights mounted in the dome. Really a lot of engineering in this car. It's pretty impressive. When you remove the floor and put it back in, you have to be kind of careful with these areas near the ends because these curve inward a little bit, so it's a little bit tricky to get the floor in and out past these. The whisker couplers drop right in. The only thing I had to watch out for is if the lids are too tight, it'll squeeze the coupler and they won't swing back and forth. So I had to leave the screws just a little bit backed out. Not much, but just slightly. They seem okay. One other thing I'll mention is that it looks like the entire draft gearbox is a separate piece, not just the lid. In other words, the whole thing will come off after you take the screw out. So if you needed to shim it to put it lower, you could do that. Potentially. Luckily, the coupler heights of the new couplers are pretty much there, so don't need to really do anything else to this car. I'm going to give it a green dot, and this car's good to go. I was really impressed with these models. You know, Rapido's definitely come a long way from the exploding flat car that I reviewed a while back. The quality, the finishes, the paint, the details on these cars are just absolutely top-notch. And the interior is really, really cool. I was very impressed by that. I think it's great that we live in a time when a company's willing to do something specific like this. You know, these cars were pretty much just an SP thing. So, you know, and there were only 7 of them. So they weren't like a super common thing, but it's really cool that, Rapido was willing to do that. Because I don't know that these cars have even been offered before, maybe in brass at some point, but I would guess if they were offered in brass, they probably don't have interiors. Because I have like one brass passenger car and it's just empty inside. It has nothing. So, seeing the interior in these, because they have so much glass, and if you didn't have an interior in these cars, they would look really weird. So, I think the interior is it's not just an afterthought, it's a necessary part of these cars. And I think they did a really good job with that. So, I'm not primarily a passenger era modeler, but I look forward to running these on excursions or maybe officer specials or something like that, maybe behind my model of 4449. I think that'll be pretty cool. So eventually, when I get the Donner layout going, I'll be doing that. Let's see what we've got. The daylight car had one high coupler, so I took 5 points in the standards and operation category. That leaves us with 195 out of 200 possible points, which averages to 97.5 points and earns an A for both cars. Individually, the daylight car got 95, and the silver car scored a perfect 100. These are outstanding models and they deserve a green signal. Rapido did an awesome job on these cars. If you're looking for some HO scale Southern Pacific Dome Lounge cars, then I think you might like them. If you like this video, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.